heard from him twice before. Once when he started the Alva Public School Strategic Initiative, and you remember we were sitting in here with Rotary filling out all kinds of different things. And then we had him in, halfway through the year to get a kind of progress report on where we were and what we're doing. The last I checked, school year just ended, or getting close to it. And I thought we'd bring our superintendent back to give us an update on where we are now that we're done with the school system. Tim?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again for having me back today. It has been an adventurous year. Someone asked me the other day, so what happens in the summer? And it's just a different busy. We prepare for new things and we prepare for next year, so I'll talk about that just a little bit. As we were, Caitlin Besiden, our IT director, our school system is a better place because of her. She has been an outstanding employee, an outstanding hire. We are thankful for her every day. I am thankful for her every day, especially for events like this. But we were talking on the way here about the question that I think Henry asked about security and our responsibility with students as students use all of the devices that we provide them at school. And of course I didn't think at the time, and she brought it to my attention after we left, that there are some things that we are doing in Alva Public Schools to provide some sense of security and maybe some awareness with our students with regard to where they go. So I thought I might just give her just an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about a couple of those things.
Some of the things we do, we have filtering obviously on all of our devices that filter things out, but we also use a free program for schools called Bark, and it warns us when there's, not just inappropriate things, but things that are threatening to a child, like suicide or troubling things they Google or other things like that, so that we can help those children, It gives us a chance to get our counselors in there and, help them out if they're searching troubling things like suicide or other things like that, or even threatening other kids. It'll let us know. One of the other things that he asked that day was, where do we draw the line? Well, this is what I told Argo that day. For me, I am not your child's parents. So what that means to me is I shouldn't be stepping on your toes. So the only thing we should give those children access to is educational content. If you want them to have social media or things like that, that should be on their own devices at home. We shouldn't be giving them access to that because we're not their parents and we shouldn't be deciding if they have access to that. So that's where we draw the line at what they should have access to. It should just be educational content for these students.
Any questions for Caitlin?
How do you limit their web browsing activities? Do you have all kinds of firewalls in place?
Yes, we have a firewall that's on campus, but we also have a filter that goes specifically with the Chromebooks that's even at home. So it's specific to the Chromebooks, so it limits everything on the Chromebooks. And it limits categories. So you'll get some that'll come through that are uncategorized, but I go through those every week, and if I see they've been on something they haven't, we block it, and if it's something, that they really shouldn't have been on, we'll get the principal involved, we'll talk to the students, we'll give a warning and talk to the parents if it continues to be a problem. But then we just continuously block it. There's uncategorized that do come through, but we do check that every week.
School system have liability
When?
for content or for...
As long as we've taken our appropriate measures through our filtering systems and through our security, no. When they take that device home, we're not liable for how much use.
And they do sign a contract at the start of the year that we let them know we are monitoring, and this is a privilege, obviously. And if you're going to continually to not do what you're told, it will be taken.
It's such a learning curve for us as a district because no matter, and I think we're better than we've been, but no matter how forward-thinking we are, there is someone out there more so than we are. And so to stay in touch with those things and to stay current, it's a real credit to Caitlin because we are where we're at. But it's one of those things you can't rest on your laurels because there is someone out there trying to beat you. So we really have worked diligently to make sure these devices are educational opportunities, and that we have provided our teachers with the training to use them that way. And so we're getting better at that. We can improve certainly, but we're getting better at it. So any other questions? Yes.
What can you tell us about Oklahoma City getting hit with ransomware?
Oh my gosh, they got hit hard too. Most likely it came through an email that someone clicked on. That's the other thing, you know. Even when the students came in and checked in their devices this year, I went class by class and talked to them about, you know, just reiterating the point that, you know, you guys are our first line of defense against attacks because they target you through email, through website ads. So the biggest thing you need to know about email is if you weren't expecting to receive it, don't click on it. Delete it, get rid of it, report it. But that's most likely how it got in on their system was someone clicked on an email that they thought was meant for them and it released ransomware into their network. It's just that easy for them.
Were they able to clean it, or did they just have to?
I think they had to restore from backups. But yeah, it's not fun. It's a threat. Every day, you know, you're like, hopefully we don't lose anything, but we have backups of everything of ours too. So if something were to happen, we'll hope not.
How do you back up the computers that the students take home?
Well, everything the students take home, all their stuff is cloud-based. So we use Chromebooks now, and so everything is cloud-based, is not stored on that computer. So if a student even breaks theirs, we're able to give them a new computer and they're able to connect to all their stuff. So we just back up all that information on the different cloud-based things they're using. Anything else for me?
Which is a whole other topic.
Right. Right.
I'll have them back in the fall for this.
Yes.
Of your IT budget, how much do you spend for cybersecurity?
I don't know the answer.
Whether it's WatchGuard or software or so forth?
I don't even know the answer, but I can find the answer for you.
No, I'm just curious.
Don't
Don't look it up.
That's a great question.
It becomes a bigger and bigger part of every budget.
Mhm.
Yes.
And if you think you're prone, I was listening to one of the deputy commissioners from Internal Revenue Service this week. They have over like 3 million hits a day of hacks to the Internal Revenue Service systems. That's every day, over 3 million hits.
I wish I could remember the website, but there's a website that you can see active, where people are actively attacking across countries. It's amazing.
Yeah, I've seen it. I have too.
Thank you again, Caitlin. Appreciate you, everything you've done for us. So if we'll look at the first, well, be that as it may, that's the wrong one.
Oh. Hold on, let me see if I have the other one.
Let's hope you do.
Oh, there it is. I still have last time's up.
Okay, so if we look at this first slide, and I handed it out to you, and you can look along at your table. This is not the completed strategic plan. This is just kind of a summary of the plan. And so let me kind of back up for a second and explain. This past week, Monday, we were to meet with our facilitators from the K-20 Center that came here on that day and surveyed Kiwanis and Rotary. We were supposed to meet with them Monday and with site teachers to go through the plan and talk about how it will be implemented in their buildings. Well, as fate would have it, weather came in and they were unable to travel here. And so we're going to meet with them later this month in June and look at how each site will implement the goals, objectives, and initiatives of this plan. We're also going to have a real nice binder notebook that talks about our district, talks about our community, and then also has all of the goals, objectives, and initiatives that we're going to be implementing to accomplish our strategic plan. And so I hope to get my hands on that by the 1st of June. I would encourage you, we're going to make those available for our community to come by and pick up. Love to have you come to the central office 1st of June to get one of those books, because I think you'll be proud of the work that was done to complete it, but I think more so you'll be proud when we begin to accomplish these things. So if you look at these goals, we had 4 goal areas: curriculum instruction, culture and community, personnel and resources. And I think probably the one that is maybe as important as any are the resources. And so I thought I might be able to just kind of touch on a little bit about what this involves. We have 2 objectives that we felt like from listening to the community, listening to our students, and listening to our teachers, and that's to improve our facilities. And so we have 2 initiatives that we want to accomplish over the next 5 years. And the first is to have a capital improvement plan. Many times, it's kind of a hard concept, and has been for me, to look at certain aspects of our school as a business. And so we need a capital improvement plan as we move forward so that we have the best in our area facility-wise. And so we haven't had that in the past, and that's something that through some committee work and some development of committees, we're going to get there. I'm going to talk about some of that facility conversation that we're having right now. One of the tools that we will be using over the summer and into next fall has been created by the School Board Association, and it is a building assessment tool. And it will allow us to go in and look at square footage per student, age of buildings. It will help us determine where we need to allocate money, into what buildings, and in the time frame we need to do it. So that will be something that we will begin working on in the fall. The second initiative is a district technology plan. Like a lot of things, we have plans, but they're maybe not as practical as they need to be. And so we are going to take a hard look at our technology plan under the direction of Caitlin and begin to dive into what we're doing and how we do it. Look at our budget for technology, look at our security, and probably more than anything, look at how we communicate with our teachers, the expectations for the use of it. Many times we buy devices or any educational tool, whether it's a document camera, whether it's an active panel, and we just give it to people and we have an expectation that they'll just be able to use it. And that's not been fair to the success of our teachers. And so what we really are committed to doing is when we purchase devices, purchase active panels, we want to provide the professional development to make sure they're successful. There's nothing worse than coming to a job and having an expectation of not being provided the tools to be successful. And so we're very committed to making sure we've done that. And we've taken great strides. A lot of it has to do with Caitlin, to make sure that our teachers are receiving more professional development and help on how to use technology in their classroom. It's new for us. There are so many things that we don't understand with regard to technology that our kids are ahead of us on, that we've got to constantly be learning. And so those are 2 big initiatives that we'll be tackling over the next 5 years. The second objective is aligning school finances to strategic planning. So the initiative that we're going to take on is budget alignment. As we begin this strategic plan, there are many parts and many pieces to it, but none of it will happen unless I am a good steward of that money and have resources in our community to help me do so. And so we will be looking at our budget this summer and try to start but setting a budget aside over the next 5 years, looking at where we think we'll be as we receive gross production tax, as we receive motor vehicle tax. We've got to be prepared for those things. I can tell you, if you go to the next slide, Caitlin, kind of go into this next one. This is kind of some things that have been thrown out really before I began as superintendent with some facility improvement. We have a committee that is meeting actually tonight and has met previously to look at how we can use some of the building fund money that we currently have to improve some facilities. And so a couple of those things are at the high school, new parking and expansion of parking. One of the things that I've heard from people in our committee and in the community We don't want to lose a lot of green space. That's very important to folks. And so we've got to make some adjustments to our plans that we've talked to people about. The track, and terrible job of spelling, the track and field area. The Kiwanis Little Olympics means a great deal to me personally. Having grown up and participated in it, it means a great deal to our school. And our track and field area needs some improvement. It needs some attention. From accessibility for people to get to the track, to parking, to the actual surface itself. And so we are looking at a multitude of options for that. It's probably down the road, but it's something that we understand there needs to be some improvement. Our softball field, baseball field, there are some areas there that restroom, concession, some equity amongst both that we need to look at. Our art room, we have a fantastic art program. Greg McClure, our art teacher, has enrollment numbers off the charts. We have students that compete all over the state and are extremely successful, and we need to pay some attention to our art room. It is a program that is growing, and we hope to continue to grow that. We've had a great partnership with the Graceful Arts in our elementary schools, and so one of those things that we need to do is we've got to work on our art room facility. And it's kind of in disrepair, and so we're going to begin some work on that this summer. Our ag farm, I've been very fortunate to have been able to travel to State FFA Conference, be a part of FFA Banquet, and I can't think of a better program that we have for our students than FFA. And there are some buildings, there are some areas at our ag farm that we have to improve for our students. There hasn't been a lot of work done down there in some time, and so we have many students involved in that, and so we need to honor that program, and we've got to do some work there. Air conditioning in the new gymnasium at the high school, twofold from things we heard in our community surveys and from our kids. It was very hot at graduation. Tickets at graduation sometimes can become an issue, limiting family and who can be there. This would provide another option for graduation. It also is just a need that we hear from our community members that come to basketball games is extremely hot and uncomfortable. And so that's something that we look at also. Middle school. Middle school is kind of an evolving process as we've met as a committee. Again, we need to add parking, but we don't want to lose green space, so we find the compromise in there. One of the important things that I've kind of dug in on maybe is dropping off students. There's no circle drive, there's no point of drop off that's clearly marked for our students, and I think it's important to have a place for our students to be dropped off by a parent, preferably at the front of the school. And so we are looking at some plans to improve that with the circle drive. And then finally, the roof at the middle school. It's been a problem for as long as I can remember, and so we are continuing to look at some different ways that we can fix our roof. And you know, with the amount of rain we had has been uncommon, but it has been a continuing problem. And then the last thing up there you see is building assessment tool. And that's where we're going to go back through this fall and begin to look at what do we need to do with our buildings. So what I've been asked many times is what does all this mean? What am I going to pay to do all these things? And I went against conventional wisdom and have been chastised by many superintendents and maybe many people because we allowed a bond issue to expire this year. And part of my reasoning for doing that is I did not want to add anything to our community without a plan. I didn't want to just throw something together without knowing what the future would be for us. And so to accomplish these facilities, we have been very fortunate and blessed with Alva Public Schools to collect a healthy amount into our building fund. And we are going to be good stewards of that and in phases make some improvements. And as we have a capital improvement plan, and if we feel like as a community that we need to look at whether it's one of the things that was mentioned at our strategic planning was a fine arts building. Whatever those things may be and whatever our dreams are, there may be a bond issue down the road, but it's not the time now. And so that's kind of how we're going to be able to phase these things in. If you look at the next slide, I wanted to give you kind of an update and made that really small. Legislatively, there's really probably one big thing left out there. Well, there's been a lot of legislation, I shouldn't say that, but one item we're still looking at is Senate Bill 441, and that is referring to school days, school weeks, 4-day week, 5-day week. There is a lot of debate over what the expectations should be. We are a 5-day school week. We are 180 days and 1080 hours. And so many schools are less than that. Some schools are as few as 150. And there's a lot of disparity across the state. And so this is, I believe, an attempt to kind of bring some consistency across our state. I don't know where this will end up, but we have been a 180-day school district for as long as I can remember, and plan to stay that way. The education budget. You've probably seen that the education budget was signed. Probably the biggest takeaway is what I get asked is the teacher pay raise. It is $1,220 average raise. So I called this week to ask, what does that mean? Where does it go? Will we get any of that money? Because the caveat to that is only districts on the formula will receive formula money to pay for the raise. I think I talked to you about this last time. We technically are on the formula. We're on the bottom half of the formula. And so I called some leadership at the state and asked them if we would receive our money for those raises, and they weren't really sure how that was going to work out. I asked them, is there a new salary schedule that we released? And no one's real for sure how this is supposed to be paid out. And so a lot of questions that I have with regard to this teacher pay raise, but there will be one. How it's funded and how it goes into effect, we haven't been given any guidance on that as of this week. So I believe there may be, I think that's it.
There's one more.
Yeah. So this summer, I talked about facilities. We are, like I said, meeting with the committee of community members, and we're talking about facilities and how we can use some of that building fund money to improve facilities. We are hiring. We have right now 2 teaching positions open. So we are very blessed. There are many districts across the state that are trying to find teachers and hire teachers. At this point in time, we have 2 middle school openings. Accreditation. This is a huge part of what we do. The 10 days following school's out, we have to do some statistical reports because that determines the funding that we receive from the state. And so within the 10 days that you complete school, you have to have these reports completed across the district. And so our administrators are working on those. Next Friday, we receive a visit from the state, and they go through all our transportation numbers. They go through all our attendance numbers. You name it, and they go through it, and it's a credit to our secretaries. They do a fantastic job day in and day out of making sure that those attendance numbers are right, that those transportation numbers are right, those lunch counts are right. So very thankful for the job they do because it pays off when we have accreditation visit. Professional development planning. We are trying to become a culture of planning and organization. So we want to try to get our professional development plan before August, before we come back. And so we've been pretty intentional about that. We've got a few more things to button up, and then we'll be done with it and be able to send those out to teachers. And then the site planning for the continuous strategic improvement, I mentioned that earlier. Later in June, we're going to meet with our facilitators. We're going to sit down with groups of teachers, and they're going to look at our strategic plan, and they're going to determine how they implement that plan in their site. And so a busy summer, it never stops. We're always constantly looking at opportunities for growth and improvement. Very thankful that we've had a great school year. I can tell you from my perspective, I called the superintendent a week or two ago, and we were visiting about bus purchasing and just all the things that come your way. And I asked him, I said, well, when will I begin to understand this job? And he said, well, in 18 months, you'll kind of have a clue. And so I've got a few more months to make it, and then maybe I'll kind of know what I'm doing. But thankful for the people around me, Caitlin, central office secretaries, great teachers and principals. I fully recognize I'm pretty difficult sometimes to work with and maybe not always charming. And so I've got good people that are around me and that can manage me as much as I do them. So any questions that you might have that I could maybe field or look up for you later? Yes?
I got one question.
Uh-huh.
If my memory serves me right, Alva Public Schools helped Northwestern fund part of their rehabilitation of their football field. And since Northwestern now has a track team that utilizes Alva Public Schools track, are we going to approach them to help fund some of that rehabilitation track?
You know, we met with Dr. Cunningham and Mr. Franz and have visited with them. They've been great partners to us. Higher ed funding is at an all-time low. And so I know that Northwestern is willing to help us in any way. Whether they're able to do that financially, I don't know. But their partnership is very important to me, regardless of the financial impact they have.
So now,
You mentioned twice, you mentioned green space. Does that have to do with your Bible class, or what exactly is a green space?
So one of the original ideas for, and the plans have kind of been in place, I think, for a couple of years, it would be to the east of the auditorium at the high school. There's that grass area, and you'll see at vocal concerts and band concerts, and we have a lot of elementary programs there in the auditorium because our classes have grown so much and we don't have a performance place at elementaries. So we've been moving many of those things there. That area where all that grass is, there we have drawn plans to make that into parking. And so what we're hearing is we don't want all that to be concrete. We want some of that left for students. We want some of that left for community. We don't want all concrete on our campuses. And so when I say green space, that's kind of what I mean by that.
Never mind.
Okay.
Any other questions? Tim, there was at the recent awards ceremony at the school, and I haven't heard the final number, but the amazing amount of scholarships that were provided, not just by Northwestern, but by the Belcher Foundation. Do you know the total number of dollars?
I believe a little over 700,000.
That is amazing to me that we got that kind of support.
Very, very blessed to be in this community. Our students are very fortunate.
I tell you, I was there, guys, when they have a graduating class of around 60, and 40 of them are up there on the stage getting the Belcher Scholarship. That's impressive.
Well, Tim and Caitlin, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Let's give them a hand.